Hi everyone, this is Young Mai. This is the operator Hindsight for the upcoming operator Jessica the Liberated. Let's get into the video. Jessica the Liberated is the first 6-star Sentinel Protector in the Defender class. The trait of the archetype is that they have a 3-tile attack range and can block 3 enemies. This archetype was separated from the Protector archetype about 2 years ago. So if you look at the direct comparison between Sentinel Protector and Protector, you can notice that they have a quite similar stats build. Other than being able to hit aerial enemies, they also have higher attack stats in return of slightly lower max HP and defense. If you look across the Defender class, you can see that Sentinel Protectors have a well-rounded build, high defense, moderate max HP but without the limitation of block 1 or Amity, lower attack but faster attack speed, as well as low DP. Talent 1 can deploy a mobile shield that lasts for 50 seconds. The shield can only be placed in the 4 adjacent tiles to Jessica. After the shield is deployed, Jessica immediately turns towards it, and she and the allied unit behind her gains defense plus 15%, 18% at potential 3. The stats of the shield are very close to Jessica herself, although it only blocks 2 enemies. It has a +1 taunt level which can turn out useful when you need it to absorb damage. The shield has a 30-second redeployment timer, which starts after retreating. The shield itself is susceptible to status effect, cannot be healed, and can take elemental damage. So that's unfortunate but expected. Therefore, it gets taken down by arts damage very fast, but is quite durable against physical damage. Now let's take a look at the turning mechanics. When Jessica is in status effect, she can still turn towards the shield, and she will return to her original deploy direction once the shield is retreated. In terms of interaction with gimmicks, they aren't very consistent. Some of them are unaffected by Jessica's turning, for example Originium Flow Generator from Dark Knight's Memoir. The realigned flux from Lingering Echoes, if I remember correctly, was also not responsive on release, but as of the current CM patch, it will now correctly respond to Jessica's turning. Other gimmicks that also respond to the turning are Visibility from Neolight, Self-Driving Cards from Ideal City, as well as the Gravity from Long Trail. What does talent do? It provides additional block count for when you need to buy time for your damage dealers to clear out your blocked enemies, while at the same time provide a little bit more defense boost for Jessica and whoever behind her. It adds flexibility to her skills so that she can turn around to deal with enemies in another direction. It also has some interesting applications as a blockable unit that does not attack whoever it's blocking, and has decent durability, which we will touch on later. Talent 2 has a 50% chance, 55% at potential 5, for Jessica to recover 1 SP when the mobile shield takes damage. Unlike defense recovery skills or Lin's SP talent, the SP recovery can be triggered by literally any sort of damage. For example, Originium floors, toxic mists, and other DOT damage, which is of course very welcomed. Considering that the shield has an increased taunt level and the fact that it's a melee unit, the SP gain is fairly effective. Jessica's main skills, Skill 2 and Skill 3, are also 30 or 40 SP skills that can benefit from it quite well. But there is some sort of dilemma behind it. The shield helps charge SP off skill, and it has interaction with skills. So using it on one end takes away some time on the other end, since the shield is always on a 50-second timer, so it really depends on what you want from the shield. The most common scenario is using it to charge up S3 so that she immediately fires a cannon on skill, and then retreating the shield so it comes back just in time for another shot during the same skill. Jessica gets her module in the most recent CN patch, so just in time for Global to get a sneak peek of what's to come 6 months later. The trade update now allows Jessica to reveal invis enemies in her range. The talent upgrades goes to her talent 1, where her shield is now even tougher and can last up to 60 seconds with module level 3. You can see the stats of the shield on the right, so with the upgrades, the shield is now officially more durable than Jessica herself. To rate the module, the base is honestly a generous function update on Sentinel Protectors, adding one crucial counter to one of the most common enemy mechanics in the game. It also works best with Jessica because she has skills that extend her attack range. For upgrades, again the shield becomes extra tough and lasts 10 seconds longer. To be honest, most of the time you don't leave the shield on the field for the full duration, so it's either destroyed or you will retreat it for the next cycle. So really the time this module comes in handy is when you want to stall some enemies for some prolonged period of time, or you need it to tank some hard-hitting physical damage, so those extra stats matter. Overall, level 1 recommended especially for players with limited invis countermeasures, for example, Silver Ash and Innis. It's definitely not as handy, but comes in rather free. For upgrades, they're optional. The defense attribute from the module is also not too much. Maybe you can wait for another that leans more towards the defensive end. Now for skills, my recommendation is Skill 3 Mastery 3 over Skill 2 Mastery 3 over Skill 1 Mastery 3. Let's take a look at Skill 1. Attack plus 70%, self and the shield gains defense plus 70%, shield duration plus 30 seconds, a 0/70 auto recovery skill with unlimited duration. The stats are as followed: 900-ish DPS and 1,300 plus defense after skill activation. Here's the number comparisons between some of the constant defense numbers. Jessica is between a Nian without her skills and Hoshiguma with skill 2. I'd say this is pretty serviceable number, and ducking behind a shield can also make her survive better in emergency. For the pros and cons for this skill, first, even though it's a 70-second warm-up skill, the shield can help her build that up faster. After warm-up, she can extend her shield duration and have an okay DPH that is enough to deal with low defense mobs. The defense in skill, like we just saw, is pretty decent. But there are some problems that really stops me from promoting this skill instead of the other two. Yes, it is your typical AFK skill pattern of a 70-second-ish warm-up, but that's for damage dealers. If you play the game following the books, you usually deploy defenders last. Deploying a defender early doesn't do as much as a damage dealer. For beginners or in IS, where she's in E1, the skill takes 90 SP and you don't have the shield SP talent to back it up. Shield lasting for 80 or 90 seconds is good, but again, usually you don't really need it for that long. And at the end of the day, 3-digit DPS is just reserved for grunts. Don't expect damage on that part. So not highly recommended, but 90 SP to 70 SP is quite huge. Skill 2, attack range expands into sharpshooter range, attack plus 75%, attack interval minus 0.9 seconds into 0.3 seconds, and gains 75% physical and arts dodge, a 25/30 auto recovery skill that lasts for 15 seconds. This is a short cycle burst skill. From SP design to stats, they all resemble typical marksman skill designs, so I put up a comparison with Akito's skill 3. Jessica's skill does have a higher DPH, so it can manage enemies that are a bit tougher. So what are the pros and cons for skill 2? Well, it has a very fast skill cycle and activation that combined with her shield can both prevent leaking off skill as well as getting the skill back faster. The 75% physical and arts dodge that she kept from the original self is even more valuable as a ground unit, especially the arts part, which is fairly rare. Those adds to her survival during skill. With this skill, Jessica becomes one of the most reliable damage in defenders that can hit aerial enemies, but be aware she does not prioritize hitting them like marksmen do. Finally, this skill is a very comfortable skill for beginners. At the beginning of the game, blocking and damage are usually done by separate units. Jessica, however, is one of the early choices you can have to do both with this skill. For the cons, again, like marksman, the skill does not have very high DPH. Target audience is still mostly mobs, and unlike actual defense boosts, dodge means that you can die due to bad luck, so not the best against those slow attacking but hard hitting enemies. Usually we don't buff defenders for their damage, but if you want, I recommend Arc skill 3 because Jessica takes that with no problem, and they have a fairly matching cycle. Just be careful with the shield placement because it has increased taunt level. Another good one would be Horn's talent with the defender attack bonus. Skill 3, attack range plus 1 tile, attack interval plus 0.6 seconds into 1.8 seconds, attack plus 310%, defense plus 80%, mobile shield defense plus 170%. When the mobile shield is deployed, immediately fires a cannon straight ahead, dealing 250% of attack as physical damage to enemies within range upon impact or reaching the maximum distance, and stuns them for 6 seconds. A 30/40 auto recovery skill with 20 ammo and can be manually deactivated. Here are all the stats for the skill. 5,000 plus damage per hit. The cannon can deal a considerable damage of 6,000 plus with a cooldown of 30 seconds. Because theoretically the skill will last for at least 36 seconds, so you can make 2 cannon shots available in one skill by quickly retreating the shield after the first cannon cast. The total damage here takes 1 cannon shot into account. Can't say her damage with the skill is high, but should be enough to crunch down 1 or 2 elite enemies. For the defense part, let's take a look at this graph that compares the active defense skills. Obviously, in the competition of peak defense number, Jessica still have some distance from Hoshiguma and Nian. But one, her shield is actually very durable, much more so than herself during skill. Second is that there are aspects to this skill that could make it a better choice than Hoshiguma skill 3 and Nian skill 2, which we will discuss in just a bit. Let's first break down how the skill works. First, during skill, each shield deployment can trigger a cannon shot. If the shield is already on field when you activate the skill, the cannon will fire immediately on activation. If Jessica herself is in status effect when the shield is deployed, the cannon shot will be delayed until she recovers. For the cannon, it has a collision radius of 0.5 tile. The explosion radius is 1.7 tile, which is identical to Horn's skill 1. The projectile will start at the midpoint of the tile edge to Jessica's facing direction and ends at the center of the furthest tile in her range, flying at 5 tile per second. So if you fire a cannon straight ahead, enemies blocked sideways will not get hit, unless there are targets in front of her. Now there are 2 advanced tricks that makes this skill more versatile. Since pulse deploy is now back on global, I think it would be nice to practice these so that you get to use her better. First is saving a cached cannon. This can only be done when there are targets currently available for Jessica to shoot it. To put it off, you need to deploy the shield, pause and quickly select Jessica. As soon as you see the glowing outline of the shield, deactivate Jessica's skill. You should then also retreat the shield to wait for the next skill. The cache cannon will then immediately fire without the presence of shield on the next skill activation. You can then deploy the shield again and chain 2 cannon shots that cause a 12-second stun. This is very useful when the last wave is relatively easy or is ending, so that you can use the shield this way to save for the next wave. The second trick is trick shooting. You will find times where there are no deployable tile in the direction where you want Jessica to fire her cannon, and you can use this trick to fire the cannon in her original direction. This is done by deploying her shield, pause and quickly selecting the shield instead. Again, as soon as you see the glowing outline of the shield, retreat it immediately, and Jessica will then fire the cannon in the direction she's already facing. This can be done even without enemies in range. The tricks have quite a room for error, and as long as you are familiar with pausing and having a gameplay in slow-mo, you should be able to pull them off consistently. So for applications, I want to talk about the advantage of skill 3 being a unique, ammo-based defensive skill. As long as Jessica is not attacking all the time, it should last longer than 36 seconds, during which herself and especially her shield are very durable against physical damage. In some scenarios, you can use the corner trick, where the shield blocks the enemy sideways, so Jessica does not attack, and the high defense shield can last for the full duration. In circumstances where you just need her to keep that defense bonus as long as possible, you can try to set it up so that she attacks as little as possible. In this way, attack speed related debuffs will be turned into an advantage for her. The large radius crowd control stun for 6 seconds is also full of potential because 6 seconds is actually very long for being part of an operator's kit. Not to mention the possible 12-second chain stun with the cached cannon trick. What's really a shame for the skill is that having it to do damage and CC requires a completely different approach from using it to tank damage. To do damage and CC, you need to spam the shield, so you immediately retreat it after casting the cannon. But to tank damage, you want the shield to stay deployed. Those are, unfortunately, incompatible choices. Jessica is a defender that combined tank, CC, and damage in her kit. While it may not have been top of the class in each aspect, it still makes her one of the most versatile defenders. And being versatile is oftentimes a ticket to being picked in IS. Other than being used like a protector in daily content, Jessica had a brief but noticeable performance in IS4. First and foremost reason being that there are just no reliable starters for the defender supporter squad in difficulty 15. Jessica's debut solved that, and she's compatible with a ton of relics that others don't really utilize, for example the attack plus after dodge relics, the defender attack plus relics, while at the same time benefit from the popular ones just as fine. She can also serve the purpose of anti-air when you don't have other choices, while being able to dodge the arts attack from the collapse drones. She's also a good candidate for the tanking strat in Ending 2, because while she's being frozen by the boss, she literally has a defense boost that never ends, which reduces the need for healing while tanking. That said, I also have to point out that her presence has died down quite a lot ever since, because Virtuosa, who comes out about 2 months later, turns out to be another good choice for defender and supporter starter. The introduction of alternative final bosses also caused resurgence of demand for Hoshigama, and Jessica's priority is further pushed down as Shu arrives. In conclusion, Jessica the Liberated is a multifunction sentinel defender who fills in damage, crowd control, and later even invis reveal that adds on top of her decent tanking ability. The impact rating here has been rebalanced from the last episode from 2 and 7 to 3 and 6. For daily, my rating is 3. As a defender, Jessica has a pretty beginner-friendly kit that do the hybrid of tanking and damage just fine in the early game. The shield also ensures that she can provide the most amount of block count from one unit. If you don't already have a 6-star protector, she can do that job for the majority of casual contents while having enough damage to clear out mobs where protectors can struggle a bit. But on the flip side, you can also say that her job can be easily replaced by a protector you've already built, plus a damage dealer, or a lane holder with a healer. For players who have enough options on the defensive end, Jessica would not bring a lot of, if any, substantial changes to your daily experience. That's the unfortunate truth for a multifunction unit that doesn't really excel at any end. For advanced, I have her as 6. I've talked about the potential of ammo-based defensive skill in the hardcore content, and the fact that the shield does not attack while blocking opens up the possibility of blocking some enemies who will be triggered on damage for a prolonged period of time. In IS high difficulty, her multifunction nature means that she can benefit from a variety of relics and buffs. However, in terms of pure tanking, she's obviously still behind the 6-star protectors compared to the defense stat ceiling of Nian skill 2 and the all damage resistance from Hoshigama. Here are all the pull recommendations for operators coming in the next 6 months. One thing that I do want to point out about pulling Jessica is that if you are a new player or you just don't have both Nian and Hoshigama, I would recommend pulling Jessica in this banner, because Nian is a limited operator and she won't even be in the 5x rate up anymore for the upcoming CNY event banner. For Hoshigama, she is now in the Colonel banner, which I would never recommend new players to pull. You should always reserve to buying certain 6-star from the certificate shop, which I would recommend prioritizing operators like Ayavela, Nightingale, Bagpipe, or even Blaze. For more experienced players, this will be more up to you. This is the preview for impact ratings for all the upcoming operators. You can notice how we have a chain of really good operators coming, so personally I would recommend saving if you have limited resources, but as always, you should prioritize your favorite characters first and foremost. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video. Bye bye.